Welcome back to Mega Man X5. It's time for the end. So, Sigma has revealed himself for real this time. Zero had been awakened, but now he's all better. He snapped back to his senses, and X has the ultimate armor. So, I feel like this is gonna be a curb stomp. I think we've got this one. And if anything, the music agrees. So, I really wish the Zero Space Stage 2 theme played in the previous level. I'm guessing they probably wanted to keep the heavier tone while Zero was still out and about. Or I guess X if you're playing as Zero. But either way, I guess it was more a mystery as to what was going to happen in the previous stage. So they wanted to keep the more gloomy, moody theme for that one. But I wish we had this song just completely uninterrupted for another stage and not just the finale, because this one's so good. As for the stage itself, I'm so glad I brought along the jump and better dash chips for X. To be fair, they did kind of screw me over on that initial section with all the spikes, because it's really easy to jump into spikes with the jumper chip enabled, but after that, it helps you skip a fairly difficult platforming section. Okay, so here we are at the boss though, we're at Boss Rush, and you might be noticing, the boss level is 96, his health meter is stupidly high. So, we're going to be discussing a few things during the boss rush, the first of which is, why the hell the boss health is so damn high? So, boss level is a thing that's not just for flavor. It's not just a thing that appears underneath a boss but doesn't affect anything. No, it's mainly, the HP value of a given Maverick, though. There's a few bosses in the game, including, Awakened Zero, that will actually lose attacks, if your boss level is low enough. So, I don't like boss rank. So, we're gonna get into how that's calculated, even though it's been going the whole game. This seems like a good point as any now that it's making our life a living hell, because, good god, I've hit this fucker so many times, and he's still not anywhere near dead. So, primarily, boss rank will just go up by defeating other bosses, so every time you defeat a Maverick, the next ones get harder, because their levels go up by 1. However, in addition, every 2 hours that go by is another 2 boss levels, so you have incentive to not take that long. So not only do bosses get stronger after you defeat other bosses, every 2 bosses you defeat, presumably, the bosses will then get even harder after that. So, another thing to note, however, is that game overs in this portion of the game will actually also increase boss level by 1. So that's right, if you're doing badly, the game gets harder, because fuck you. So, that is a good reason to save. You'll want to save instead of returning to the save point, or the last continue point after a game over, because things will only get more difficult if you try to continue. It's dumb, and I don't like it. I think it's a bad mechanic. I'm not super into the idea of, hey, did you do badly? Well, guess what? Things are worse for you now. I don't necessarily want them to get easier either, I kinda just want them to stay the same for consistency's sake, but, whatever. The most important thing, however, and, the mechanic that is going to lead into a different mechanic, is Hunter rank. So, the better your Hunter rank, the higher the boss level. It'll go up by 2 for each, grade it goes up by. So Hunter rank is another thing you might have noticed throughout the course of the game that I haven't talked about, because I wanted to talk about it here, now that it's actually relevant. So, Hunter rank as we've already discussed, is not just flavor text either. It is a thing that will actually make things more difficult if you do better, which I guess is more fair than the game over thing, but still, that's very rude to people, especially speedrunners. Especially since time is, of course, a factor of whether or not you get a better rank. So essentially, each stage has, like, a certain amount of points you can get, and depending on the number of points you get, that will either increase or decrease your rank depending on where the threshold is. So, clear time is of course one of them. Apparently you need to beat stages within a minute for PA rank, and then you have up to 2 minutes for everything else, which is wild. I guess PA rank is for speedrunners. Mavericks destroyed. Okay, so if I'm reading the table correctly, and I'm pretty sure I am, you actually want to destroy fewer Mavericks, which I don't get why they punish you for destroying more, considering if you destroy more Mavericks, you're probably wasting more time, so you're already going to screw yourself out of the best clear time rank. So, I don't get it. I guess they don't want to screw you over on, hey, you got a really good time, but you didn't kill enough things. Which is not the mentality of the later Mega Man Zero games, where, fuck you, you do need to destroy a lot of Mavericks, while also getting a good clear time. Damage received, of course, is more straightforward. More damage, worse rank. Number of Sigma viruses, if you get hit by a Sigma virus at all, your rank's gonna go down. Honestly, that's the biggest danger they really pose. Though I guess, to be fair, it also discourages you from super healing with Zero. They don't want you getting too powerful. But yeah, no, like, if you care about rank, you don't want to get hit. Though, to be fair, I feel like most people are going to want a lower rank unless they're specifically trying to brag about beating the game with a high rank, which, you know, difficulty runs make sense. I get that, but I don't know, I'm just thinking more in lines of, like, people doing speedrunning as challenges, I guess. That's my assumption. And the other thing that gives you points is the highest damage you deal to a boss within a single attack. So, I guess make sure to hit things with either charge shots or your special weapons. You're actually encouraged to do that, which is, honestly, really nice. But yeah, that's Hunter rank. Oh, and of course, the actual ranks themselves. So, the lowest rank is rank E, and you actively have to do terribly in order to get rank E, because, if I remember correctly, X starts the game as rank B, and I think that Zero either starts with rank A or SA. I mean, technically speaking, it would make sense to be SA, considering that's, like, canonically his rank. Same for X, his is supposed to be canonically B, despite the fact that he's killed Sigma so many times now. But those are actual ranks. There's also D, C, regular A, if that's not what Zero starts as. There is also, I think it's a GA, PA, and the highest rank in the game... Okay, so this is funny. Technically, in this version of the game, it should be MMH, and it will appear as such if you actually get it. But apparently in the save screen, it is the same as it is in the Japanese version. They didn't actually change the graphic for that between language versions. And that's funny because the highest rank in the Japanese version is rank MEH. So yes, the best rank in the game in the Japanese version is rank Meh. I can see why they changed it overseas. I feel like I'd be pretty disappointed if I were good enough at the game to get the best rank, and then it was just meh. You did okay. Anyway, though, yeah, that's it. That's all the main gameplay mechanics I want to talk about that I did not get to within the game itself, because honestly, it's kind of just a long subject, and I didn't really have any point in the game long enough to really fit that in other than the boss rush. And it, you know, I think it helps punctuate the boss rush, because this is a worse boss rush than usual. I cannot emphasize nearly enough how much I hate the fact that they give the bosses more HP. Like, this is just a test to make sure you can take down the bosses. It's not supposed to be a huge labor. It's just supposed to be a one and done. Either you can kill the boss good enough with Buster, that you don't take too much damage between fights, or you just hit them with their weaknesses and you're done with it. But no. Here you just have to wait to actually kill the bosses, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how useful the special weapons even are. Like, they do stun the bosses, and that helps, don't get me wrong. I love being able to stun the bosses to stop them from doing whatever it is they're doing. But they have so many iframes when you hit them with their weapon that it's actually kinda better for speed if you just hit them with charge shots, because the iframes for that are nowhere near as bad. Well, I guess that leads perfectly into my final thoughts on the game mechanically, though, because I want to talk about the game's story during the credits, because there's a couple of last-second things I'll want to mention. But yeah, overall thoughts other than that. I did not enjoy X5 nearly as much as X4. X4 is the better game, better level design. While technically you can only play as one character at a time, vanilla version of X5, you should only play as one character at a time, because you are absolutely nerfing a character if they're not getting the upgrades. That was not an issue here. I got to just play most of the game normally. I could just switch back and forth, like, not on different files, up until the end game, when I suddenly needed both a bad ending run for the first 3 stages, and now an X and 0 run for the last stage. So, my work was a lot easier in the initial portion, but it actually got harder for the endgame, which sucks, because I hate the endgame more than the regular game. Like, the level design is just kind of iffy in the main game. It's not the worst thing I've ever played, but there are definitely some levels that just are kind of grating to me, so I don't like them as much, whereas X4 I was pretty solid on throughout the board. Obviously not, like, perfect all the time, but, you know, that's fine. I'm not expecting absolute perfection from everything ever, it just, you know, helps. I've said this many a time, but, like, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is one of my favorite games. It's probably not perfect, but I still love it. It doesn't need to be perfect all the time forever. It's got the barrel segment. Nobody likes that one. Even when you know what to do, it's just kinda stupid. But yeah, no, like, I don't want absolute perfection, but there were definitely more levels that I just kinda side-eyed in this game as opposed to X4, which was pretty good across the board. Good, fun, and fluid level design overall. Very much appreciated that one. This one, a little less so. But yeah, no, then you get to the end game, and I just... ugh, God, I have really loathed every part of this. Like, stages 2 and 3 weren't as bad. 3 especially. And that might have been helped by the fact that I was not trying to get a perfect run for the X versus 0 fight. That certainly made it a lot less tedious. But, Stage 1 was just absolutely the worst. I had such a buffer of levels I'd play. Like, I had so many extra videos, but the first stage took me so long to do, partially for actually pulling all that shit off, but also partly because I just didn't want to play X5 on my usual days because Stage 1 was just so bad. I fell behind, now I'm only like a couple episodes ahead now. At the moment, I only have 2 episodes of X6 recorded. I had like half the game recorded, this one, when I started LPing it. That's just how bad that first stage was. But again, stage 2 is better. Rong Da Bong is not great, but it's not nearly as bad as the Devil Boss. And the stage leading up to the Devil Boss was garbage too. Just, why would you combine Quickman lasers and devil fights? 2 things that are just notable for sucking so much ass in the series. I'm gonna be very critical about those. I don't like them. Can't really find a silver lining to them. I'm gonna fucking be a bitch about them. I'm sorry. I just don't like either one of those things in the best cases. Why would I want them together? But yeah, no, the end game has really just dampened my mood on this game even further. It took it from... A lot of this is something I enjoy because of the hack I added to it, but I can see the potential here in the base game, even if parts of it annoy me. And then Endgame took that to, oh god, I'm done with this game. Here we are at Spiral Pegasus, by the way, we're almost done with Boss Rush. And I wanted to stop here for a moment, because he has a particular weakness that doesn't cause him damage per se, but you know, it is a fun one to use. You just have to make sure you don't use it immediately, otherwise you probably won't kill him with it. Zawardo! Yeah, so he's the only boss who can actually be stopped by the time stop ability that X and Zero both have. Spiral Pegasus. You don't even know that you've been killed. Anyway, though, yeah. I feel like the boss rush really exemplifies that. Like, due to the mechanics of the game, which I'm not keen on in the first place, the boss rush took longer. It wasn't necessarily harder, it just took longer. Also, there is more level after that, 'cause fuck you. God. Saying that, I can't tell if I like this endgame more or less than King's Castle. It's genuinely hard to tell. Because, in a way, King Castle at least feels spitefully designed. I don't think it was, truly, but it feels like it. And I can't tell if I appreciate that more or less than this, like, accidentally being just absolutely bad. Because I get what the setup is. Like, before you actually get to Zero, you see the memories that led up to him, so you get a bit of Wily, you get a bit of Sigma, and then you get Zero himself. I understand what they're going for. I just didn't like a lot of it. And yeah, now we have a Yoku block section. They really knew what we wanted for the endgame, huh? At least the song kicks ass. I should mention that as well, if I'm wrapping things up. Music in this game is still good, the soundtrack does not suffer. I don't know why this room exists other than for another healing thing. Graphically, the game looks fine, I love the sprite work as always, I think that looks good. And like, a lot of the other mechanics like the apocalypse and the viruses, I think, are really good for setting a mood. But yeah, I just think it's undermined by level design. Anyway, though, the title of this video, I don't know if you know what I'm going for this title, but it's not from this first form. I'm looking at this armor, and I swear I have to have seen something like this in some anime, but I cannot possibly think of what copyright Sigma's violating today. Anyway, Sigma's very sad because Zero didn't truly awaken. I mean, he did awaken briefly, but he did back out of it at the last moment, so... Now Sigma's explaining, like, oh yeah, you know, I was trying to just virus the entire planet to make Zero whole. So yeah, I guess that's the really messed up thing about this. Sigma has just been cursed with such a terrible curiosity about Zero that he was willing to almost die for it, and also, of course, kill thousands of people, or, well, millions if his plan succeeded. I mean, usually Sigma's obsessed with X, so this feels like it's a bit of a shift, but whatever. Sigma's been doing some reading, and apparently he's also been talking to someone. But yeah, this has been his big plan, was to try and awaken Zero. I should remind you, however, that yeah, no, Sigma did have to really kneecap himself by doing that initial gambit of letting us kill him. That did spread him out over most of the planets. And now he's only level 27, jeez. He does retain his cool theme from the start of the game, though, and you know what, for that I'm glad, because this song still whips ass. But yeah, no, this is essentially Sigma's last stand. He does look very clean, he does look very strong. Again, I can't tell what copyright he's infringing on. I don't know, like, I almost want to say Dragon Ball, but like, nobody's armor is quite like that. Besides, I might need Sigma Z for a later date. Don't quote me on that. But, despite how well he's presenting himself, he really is just kinda trying to keep his posture for his final stand, cause if he's killed here, it's over for him for good. Yep, definitely no Sigma ever again. That's what X5 promises. X5 promises a lot of things that would have held up a lot better if there was not an X6. More on that later, when we actually get to X6. I will say I also appreciate this room as well. I mean, I feel like this is something Sigma set up because I highly doubt X and Zero had capsules in the same room. I feel like Sigma just found their capsules and brought them together for a sort of a symbolic thing. He is a very obsessed person, if nothing else. So, it wouldn't surprise me to hear that he set all this up, just got X and Zero's capsules, put up weird wireframe statues of them. All in the name of whatever the fuck he's trying to do. Anyway, that is, of course, not it just yet. God, Zero is just me anytime I see that kind of online argument anymore. Also, I briefly considered, not using this take because Zero killed Sigma on the right side of the room facing left, and I thought, maybe Zero should be facing Sigma for this cutscene, but you know what? No. I like the idea that Sigma's just gigantic and standing in the background, and Zero just has to look over his shoulder, because he is just acting so nonplussed about all this. Even though Sigma is now declaring that apparently he's spoken to an old man, which we can just assume at this point is Wily. We know it's Wily. Though that begs the question, what did Wily leave behind that Sigma's been speaking to him? Or did Sigma even speak to Wily at all? He could just be crazy. That's a possibility. So, this is Final Sigma W, which is a pretty presumptuous name if you ask me. And so, the title of this comes from me looking at this model and realizing that the posture of him and just the quality of 3D model we're working with absolutely reminds me of the Guitar Warrior from Total Distortion. It's mirrored, and obviously the only animation Sigma has is him just kind of disappearing into the wireframe zone. Otherwise, he's just stationary. But if he were moving back and forth, he would be singing about how we're dead. Anyway, this final boss is so much easier than X4's final boss. He definitely has a lot of good tricks up his sleeve, though. He has the one weak point, the red gem on his forehead. That block attack can actually be pretty hard to dodge just because of how big it is. And this right here is a real bastard to avoid. He will slowly move his hand back and forth. I don't know if it's possible to escape being in between the electricity here. He'll maneuver himself to basically just put you between a few of the beams when he starts. And if you try to move around, you'll probably be caught in one of the bolts. It might be possible to avoid that, but I was very much not able to, so I just had to play along with him and just, oh god, get between those lightning bolts. Again, not easy. It is very difficult to do. So yeah, that's it, that's Sigma. He's going down for good. Threatens a suicide attack. You're a mess, what can you do now?
Well, I can be a real bastard. Hey, remember how X is in the same room? I'm gonna get him.
I feel like my version of this has made more sense, because if you're just playing as X,
Sigma's like, I'm gonna kill Zero too.
And the final cutscene's gonna be the same in its start no matter what, so I feel like it makes more sense to have Zero out in the forefront for this to happen. Because this is one of those situations where a boss exploding is actually bad for us. On account of the fact that it did this to Zero. Jesus Christ, he got torn in more than half. So yeah, even if X is standing in the arena, Sigma will always explode over Zero instead. So yeah, Sigma was pretty sure of himself. He had apparently met Wily, or maybe he found some sort of database by Wily, or who knows, maybe he also wound up having the same dreams that Zero did. I still think that Sigma's kinda just crazy, cause Wily's probably long dead, or maybe he's also a capsule ghost, like Dr. Light. I don't know, I did play that hack of X1 that had the Wily capsules for Zero instead. Maybe those are just canon. Maybe Wily's ghost is also talking to Sigma. Either way, though, most of the ending will play out the same. Of course, things turn out pretty bad for X if Zero's not here, because in the bad ending run, Zero will have died in Stage 3, so he wouldn't be there to protect X from Sigma's suicide attack. This, however, is different. X has a slightly different epilogue than Zero does. In this case, Zero is going to basically just, in his dying memories, flash back to various points throughout his life, like that time when he was a Maverick and he fought Sigma. Still don't know who this SOB is. Why is he only ever in silhouettes? And we see Zero in his creation. So, it took until the end of his life, but Zero finally knows where he came from. I suppose it makes sense, he did awaken. He did hear Wily's voice before that happened. It's all become clear to him. And it actually ends on Iris. Man, this game does really well when it picks up what X4 put down. Zero's last regret is still having to kill Iris. Zero thinks that by dying, maybe things will get better. I mean, considering this game, that does make sense. Like, Sigma became obsessed with Zero and very nearly crashed a colony into the planet, killing millions, just to awaken him. So, this is X's segment of the ending. And it is slightly different than it would be in the bad ending run. Light is a little more concerned with X in that ending. And so, 3 years later, yep, 3 years, this is happening. Zero is long gone, but don't you worry, X is still here. And even though Zero may have died, He's got a new partner in these three. No. No, he still has his partner with him. So we get an ending shot of X with Zero's saber. So, even though Zero died, X is still able to keep on living, using Zero's memory as an inspiration for himself. It's a really good way to end the X series, and also a pretty interesting difference between the good and bad endings. So, for the bad ending, rather than all of this happening, Light will instead pull off a real big stunt and make it so that not only is Zero's memory erased from X because Light assumes it will cause X too much pain, he also prevents X from ever getting new memories of Zero, so he literally can never actually know Zero ever again, which sounds over the top, Light. I don't know how you thought that was okay, but you know what? You're a recording, not an actual ghost. It would be ridiculous if you were an actual ghost. But yeah, no, I think it's interesting that the differences between the endings, they always involve the death of Zero. It's just how X is able to basically come to terms with that death. And the bad ending, he's denied closure because, you know, Zero, before he died, did turn violent, and the last memory he has of him is a fight to the death. And, like, sure, yeah, he did have a moment of clarity, but, like, that wasn't enough. Even the sacrifice wasn't enough to really put X at ease, so rather than ever being able to really reconcile with Zero's death, he's just forced to never acknowledge it ever again. Whereas in the good ending, although it is a tragedy, in the long run it makes X stronger because he did have more closure. Zero still saved him, but he was still good to the very end. And because of that, he's able to kind of use Zero's memory, even though Zero himself has passed. You know, that's really nice. I actually like that difference between the good and bad endings. I think that's genuinely just, if not well thought out, then coincidentally very good. Very cool conceptually. So yeah, that is the end of the Mega Man X series. Can't you tell? I mean, everything closed out so well. I mean, Sigma's dead for good, Zero has unfortunately had to die to keep that piece going, but, you know, he does live on in X. Yep, it's all wrapped up really well. You, of course, are well aware that there's an X6, because I've mentioned there being an X6, and there's also an X7 and an X8. This is absolutely the point where they were really trying to end the X series, and that will kind of continue in X6 as well. They're really trying to make this X game the last one, but for a bit Capcom was going, no, keep making them. But then the sales went down, so they were like, oh, never mind. Looks like now we have to quit while we're behind. Even though X8 is, like, at least considerably better than 6 and 7, but we're unfortunately nowhere near that point. We are instead at the doorstep of Mega Man X6, so, you know, X5 I've had some complicated feelings on. I think it had some pretty good ideas that are held back by just execution that I didn't particularly care for, and an end game that was just absolutely miserable. I did not like the end game at all. Other than, you know, the ending itself and the final boss are fine, but actually playing everything that came before, Zero, and also the boss rush was just, ugh. Anyway though, that is Mega Man X5. You are a played video game. Next time it's Mega Man X6. I'm sure I'll miss this game by the end of that one. See y'all next time.
were hot. Guess what? You're not.
You are dead, dead, dead.
You brought your whole adventure to a screeching halt.
You are dead, dead, dead.
Your heart has stopped and your brain is cold. You were so dead, and now your body is starting to mold. You were so dead. This dimension cuts like a knife.
You are dead, dead, dead.
What a